Hello everyone, welcome back CBS Beyond the Gates. Vanessa arrived in Fairmont Crest like a shadow sliding across polished glass, controlled and impossible to ignore. She didn't need a grand introduction or loud drama to announce herself. One appearance was enough to make Nicole feel the air shift around her, as if the entire community had subtly tilted off balance. In a world built on impeccable smiles, curated laughter, and unspoken agreements to bury inconvenient truths beneath wealth and glamour, Vanessa didn't come to blend in. She came carrying the unmistakable energy of someone who already knew she would break something. What unsettled Nicole most was that Vanessa didn't even try to hide it. Her gaze wasn't the casual curiosity of a newcomer trying to find her playsite. Was the stare of someone who had stood on the other side of a secret for far too long and returned, only to see who had survived the aftermath. On January 21st, gossip spread through Fairmont Crest the way smoke travels through a hallway, vast, quiet, and impossible to contain once it starts. Vanessa had made a proposal to Kial, something deliberately vague, sharp enough to sting, but blurred enough that no one could decide whether it belonged to business or something far more personal. In this community, a proposal like that could either become a staircase to power or a rope around someone's throat. And when rumors followed that Kial might have feelings for Nicole, the situation turned even more volatile. Nicole knew what it meant to be watched under the surface of polite conversation. She knew how quickly curiosity could morph into judgment, how easily a private emotion could be reshaped into a weapon. Yet what chilled her was not the possibility of Kial's feelings, but the way Vanessa seemed to bend the narrative on purpose, as if she were rewriting the heartbeat of everyone involved to match her own agenda. Vanessa began her game with charm and allure that wasn't innocent or bright, but sharpened by experience and impatience with lies. She appeared in front of Kial at exactly the right moments, when his guard was slightly down, when his schedule cracked open, when his confidence needed reinforcement. In Fairmont Crest, where lives were structured like machines and reputations were maintained like investments, Vanessa understood the power of interruption. She didn't rush forward too boldly, but she didn't stay distant either. Instead, she chose a delicate middle rhythm, just enough to make Kial feel pursued, just enough to make him convince himself that this was an opportunity, an alliance with potential, a connection that could unlock doors, or simply a rare moment of being seen and chosen. But in Vanessa's mind, there was no room for romance. She wasn't truly flirting with Kial. Her proposal was the perfect disguise. It allowed her access to his private sphere, without appearing intrusive. It let her ask questions without sounding like an interrogation. It let her enter his personal life under the harmless label of chemistry. Vanessa suspected Kial was connected to a financial scandal or a long-buried scheme, tied to his family's past, some stain hidden beneath fresh success. And if Fairmont Crest excelled at anything, it was scrubbing surfaces so thoroughly that no one remembered there had ever been blood underneath. Vanessa's purpose was simple and ruthless: lift the rug. She planned everything with precision. Not just her appearance, her tone, or the way she laughed at the right moment spit the path of information itself. She anticipated Kial's reactions before he even had them. She predicted how outsiders would misread the situation, and she used that misunderstanding as a shield. If anyone questioned why she was suddenly close to Kial, she could offer answers that sounded natural enough to satisfy them: professional curiosity, admiration, or the promise of collaboration. The truth lived in the silences between her words. She counted on those silences to protect her, because nothing is safer than a secret hidden inside something people think they understand. Vanessa designed their meetings like traps lined with velvet. On the surface, everything looked intimate and effortless: private spaces, low voices, moments that made Kial feel singled out. She gave him room to talk about himself, about his achievements, about the burdens he carried, about the obstacles he had survived. Vanessa never demanded answers. She let Kial offer them freely, because people become most honest when they believe they are the ones doing the conquering. Kial, unaware he was walking through a maze with the exit already drawn in someone else's mind, began to melt into the comfort of being understood. He believed Vanessa was sincere, because she reacted like someone genuinely captivated, her eyes brightening at exactly the right time, her pauses perfectly timed, her questions soft enough to feel like affection but precise enough to cut. With every detail Kial shared, Vanessa moved deeper into the forbidden territory of his life. She didn't need him to confess guilt. She only needed him to reveal the structure of a secret: who protected it, who feared it, and who benefited from its silence. She paid attention to the tiny patterns: when Kial hesitated, what he refused to name, what he explained too quickly, and what he tried to bury with charm. She watched the way he spoke about family, the way his voice shifted when the past came too close, the way his confidence suddenly hardened into defense. Vanessa wasn't searching for a dramatic confession. She was hunting for proof. The danger wasn't in anything she did openly. Vanessa didn't move like an impatient predator. She moved like someone who understood that evidence rarely appears when you chase it. Evidence appears when someone feels safe enough to stop guarding it. She planted herself in the edges of his route, nerving at moments that felt accidental, staying close enough to observe without looking like she was watching. She slipped into his world so naturally that he began to treat her presence as normal. She searched for traces, documents, patterns, contradictions, anything that could connect his family's murky financial history to the shifting power dynamics happening now. Vanessa didn't need the whole puzzle immediately. She only needed one sharp piece, because one sharp piece could cut open the rest. While Vanessa quietly tightened her grip, Nicole felt the pressure spreading toward her even though she wasn't directly involved. Nicole wasn't naive. She noticed the shifting stares, the half-finished questions, the sugary insults disguised as concern. The rumor about Kial's feelings for her became an excusion that allowed people to drag Nicole into a storm she never asked for. And the cruelest part was that she couldn't fight back by naming the truth, because she didn't fully know where she stood inside this narrative. Some relationships didn't begin with love, yet they still became vulnerabilities. Nicole understood that too well. She could sense herself being used as bait, turned into misdirection, transformed into a convenient distraction to hide Vanessa's real target. And that was when fear became sharper, not fear of gossip, but fear of strategy. Vanessa, at the center of it all, never wavered. The deeper she went, the calmer she appeared. There is a kind of coldness that only exists when someone has made a decision long ago, when revenge stops being an emotion and becomes a plan cultivated with time. Vanessa didn't deny she wanted something for herself. She didn't deny she might be settling a score. But she never explained it either. She let others imagine her motives, because imagination always breeds uncertainty. And uncertainty is where the person in control can hide most comfortably. Then, in the middle of what looked like harmless intimacy, Vanessa found the clue she needed. It didn't arrive as a confession or a shocking outburst. It appeared as a single detail out of rhythm, a name mentioned too quickly and then abandoned. A number spoken as if it meant nothing. A sudden silence when Vanessa asked about a specific period in his family's past. That was enough. Because people who live beside buried truths develop the same reflexes. They speak too much where it's safe, and they stop completely where it's dangerous. Vanessa didn't require further explanation. She had just discovered the crack. Now she could widen it. From that moment on, Vanessa's performance grew more intense, more layered, even more believable. She didn't pull away because distance would invite suspicion. Instead, she offered Kial more and more attention, more closeness, more reassurance. She let him feel like he was in control, like he was the one driving the connection forward. Kial trusted her completely. The more he trusted, the easier it became for Vanessa to gather what she needed. She stepped into his life like a rescuer who appeared at the right time, softened his stress, made him feel chosen instead of judged. But underneath that softness, Vanessa was only wrapping silk around a noose so the tightening wouldn't be noticed. Until it was too late. Every time Nicole saw them together, something heavy settled inside her. It wasn't simple jealousy. It wasn't even purely fear. It was the instinctive awareness that a weapon was being built out of ordinary moments. Nicole could feel Vanessa using intimacy as a key to unlock something dangerous. And once that door opened, the fallout wouldn't belong to Kial alone. In Fairmont Crest, secrets never stayed contained. They were rooted in shared soil, tangled through families and alliances. And when one truth was ripped out, others would rise with it. Nicole began to wonder what she had missed in the past. What pieces of history the people around her had buried so deeply that even their closest connections had been left outside the grave. She began to suspect that Vanessa might not be targeting Kial for Kial's sake at all. She might be using him as a doorway to something larger, something that could reach Nicole herself. With convincing evidence finally within her grasp, Vanessa faced the real decision, the most terrifying stage of all. And what made it frightening was that she didn't look conflicted. She hadn't come to fall in love. She had come to control the ending. If she exposed everything publicly, Kial would collapse and take others down with him. If she kept her proof hidden and used it as leverage, she could force outcomes in silence, bending people to her will without anyone ever understanding why. In this world, true power didn't come from what people knew you had. It came from what they didn't know you were willing to do next. By the end of the episode, the air felt colder than the expensive air conditioning in Fairmont Crest's most luxurious rooms. Nicole still didn't know whether she should fear Vanessa or fear Kial's quietness, or fear her own position inside a story she never agreed to enter. Kial still believed he was stepping into a connection that could change his life for the better. while Vanessa had already decided exactly how his life would change. And just before everything shattered, Vanessa only needed one small action: a message sent. A file forwarded. A single click turned that January 21st proposal into the beginning of an earthquake. No one could escape, because the moment Nicole turned away, she never saw Vanessa standing behind her, no longer watching Kial at all, but watching Nicole instead, with the unmistakable calm of someone who had never been setting a trap for Kial in the first place. Nicole didn't think someone like Vanessa could throw her off balance so completely. In Fairmont Crest, she was used to people arriving with polished smiles, leaving with quiet intentions, and hiding ambition behind perfect manners. But Vanessa didn't feel like the usual newcomer chasing relevance. Vanessa moved like a threat, subtle, deliberate, and far too confident for someone who had just stepped into their world. The moment Nicole learned Vanessa had made some kind of proposal to Kial, something vague enough to sound professional but sharp enough to feel personal, it didn't just irritate her. It triggered something deeper, something instinctive. Nicole felt like a line had been crossed without her permission, like Vanessa was testing how far she could push before Nicole snapped. At first, Nicole tried to steady herself, tried to believe she was overreacting. She told herself Kial was smart enough to recognize manipulation, that Vanessa was simply stirring attention. But the more Nicole forced herself to breathe through it, the more she realized the fear wasn't fading. It was settling quietly, heavily, like heat trapped beneath ash. Everything became impossible to ignore when Nicole saw Vanessa and Kial together with her own eyes. It wasn't even about dramatic flirting or obvious seduction. It was the quiet intimacy that scared her, the way Vanessa stood just a little too close, the way she angled her body as if she had already claimed his attention, the way Kial responded with an ease that felt unfamiliar. It didn't look like love, but it looked like power. Vanessa wasn't just trying to charm Kial, she was trying to dismantle his caution, to make him forget boundaries, to let him believe he was safe while she decided the terms of everything. Nicole stood on the edge of that moment and felt herself becoming the outsider in a situation that could reshape her life more than anyone wanted to admit. What stung most wasn't simple jealousy. It was the humiliating sense of being dismissed, of watching someone reach into a space Nicole thought still belonged to her, and rearrange it like furniture. Nicole hated how much Vanessa unsettled her, but the truth was undeniable. Vanessa carried the energy of someone who knew too much, and that certainty made Nicole feel exposed. Nicole couldn't stop thinking about what Vanessa had told her before, information that had shocked her the first time she heard it. Vanessa hadn't revealed everything, but she had revealed enough to hint at something dark in Kial's past. A secret so carefully buried that touching it even slightly could destroy the structure he had built around his name. Back then, Nicole had tried to convince herself it might be exaggeration, or that even if it were real, it was still Kial's private history, not something she should interfere with. But watching Vanessa circle him now, Nicole understood something cold and brutal. Vanessa hadn't shared that secret with her out of trust. She had shared it like a weapon, like a trap. Vanessa had placed a bomb in Nicole's hands and simply waited for the moment Nicole would detonate it. That realization was what pushed Nicole into a public confrontation. It wasn't because she craved drama. It wasn't because she wanted to appear insecure in front of everyone. Nicole confronted Vanessa because she felt time collapsing. If she didn't act now, Vanessa would go further. And once Vanessa held enough control over Kial, no one would be able to pull him back. Nicole moved toward Vanessa with anger that had sharpened into cold determination. She knew people would judge her. She knew the whispers would paint her as territorial, unstable, incapable of handling competition. But she also knew silence would be interpreted as permission. And Vanessa would take that permission and turn it into a victory. The moment Nicole approached Vanessa, the air shifted. In Fairmont Crest, conflict is felt before it's spoken, like a crack forming beneath the surface of glass. Vanessa turned to face Nicole, and what unsettled Nicole immediately was the absence of surprise. Vanessa looked almost prepared, as if she'd been expecting this exact scene to unfold. That only made Nicole angrier. It felt like Vanessa wasn't reacting to Nicole's decision at all, she was welcoming it. As if Nicole had just taken her place in a script Vanessa had already written. Nicole didn't soften her approach. She didn't offer polite questions or graceful hints. She went straight for the wound. She demanded clarity about the proposal, about Vanessa's intentions with Kial, about why Vanessa insisted on dragging this situation into ambiguity, where reputations could be destroyed by rumor alone. Vanessa didn't respond like someone cornered. She remained calm in a way that felt dangerous, almost cruel. The calmer Vanessa stayed, the more Nicole felt herself slipping toward the edge. Vanessa's composure made Nicole feel like she was the only one losing control, the only one exposing emotion, while Vanessa stood untouched and superior. Watching the fire spread, the argument escalated quickly. Nicole could feel Vanessa steering the conversation, offering smooth half-answers that left Nicole chasing shadows. Vanessa refused to fully deny her closeness with Kial, but she also refused to claim it as something serious. She held everything in that poisonous middle space, where Nicole couldn't grab onto a clear fact or a clean truth. Nicole felt taunted. She felt manipulated. She felt the desperate frustration of trying to fight someone who wouldn't fight back in the same way. Someone who stayed slippery on purpose so she could never be pinned down. Nicole's anger sharpened into accusation. She began to suggest more openly now that Vanessa was hiding something, not out of embarrassment, but out of strategy. Nicole didn't say it outright at first, but the implication was unmistakable. Her eyes locked onto Vanessa with a kind of fury that wanted to rip the mask off her face. In that moment, Nicole could feel two instincts battling inside her. One part of her wanted to stop, to regain composure, to avoid making herself look like the villain in public. The other part wanted to destroy Vanessa's calm, wanted to see her flinch, wanted to prove Vanessa wasn't untouchable. And then Nicole crossed the line. Whether it happened by accident or deliberate choice, it happened in the worst possible way. In the rush of anger, Nicole revealed the scandalous information Vanessa had once shared with her. Maybe Nicole meant it as a warning. Maybe she believed that if Vanessa knew Nicole had access to that secret, Vanessa would step back. Maybe Nicole thought this would force Vanessa to retreat, to realize she couldn't toy with Kial without consequences. But Nicole didn't realize she had just done exactly what Vanessa had been waiting for. She turned a secret into a public weapon. That information wasn't harmless gossip. It was directly tied to Kial, to a hidden part of his past he had fought to keep buried. It involved a dark and difficult history that could change how people saw him forever. When Nicole spoke it aloud, the air froze. A silence dropped so heavily that it felt like the entire room lost its breath. Nicole understood immediately, in the pit of her stomach, that she had thrown a stone into a still lake and whatever lived beneath the surface was waking up. Kial was there, or appeared at the exact worst moment. As if the universe itself had arranged the scene to be as cruel as possible. His expression turned vacant with shock, not like someone hearing unexpected news, but like someone being stripped bare in front of an audience. His eyes moved from Nicole to Vanessa and then drifted into empty space between them, as if his mind couldn't accept what had just happened. In that instant, Kial didn't know who to hate more. He felt betrayed, but beneath that betrayal was something even sharper: humiliation. Part of him wanted to deny everything, to shove the truth back into darkness. Another part knew that once a secret is spoken aloud, it can never return to its original place. Nicole watched Kial lose control and felt her heartbeat stutter. There was no satisfaction in this. There was no victory. His reaction didn't feel like winning, it felt like damage. It felt like the collapse of something fragile she hadn't realized could break so easily. A flash of regret cut through her, but it was strangled immediately by self-defense. Nicole told herself she had no choice, that Vanessa would have destroyed him anyway. That she was protecting herself, protecting the truth, protecting Kial from being manipulated. Yet the louder she tried to justify it, the clearer another voice became inside her: she had done something that could never be undone. Vanessa's reaction was immediate and explosive. This time, her anger wasn't hidden behind calm smiles or composed elegance. She looked at Nicole like someone who had just been robbed. Vanessa wasn't furious because Nicole knew the secret. Vanessa was furious because Nicole used it in a way Vanessa couldn't control. For Vanessa, the secret wasn't just information. It was currency. It was leverage. It was power. Nicole had ripped that power from her hands and shattered it in front of the one person Vanessa needed it to manipulate most effectively. Vanessa wasn't losing Kial emotionally. She had never truly needed emotion. She was losing advantage. And Vanessa would never forgive that. Nicole and Vanessa stared at each other, and in that stare there was nothing left of polite rivalry. It was raw hostility now, direct and irreversible. Nicole felt it in her bones. The relationship between them was destroyed. There would be no clean recovery, no easy apology, no graceful return to neutrality. Nicole couldn't pretend this was a misunderstanding. And Vanessa would never let Nicole forget that she had ruined something carefully planned. What terrified Nicole was that she no longer knew whether she had just saved Kial or pushed him deeper into the trap. Kial stood in the center of the storm, and the cruelty of it was that he couldn't escape. If he reacted too strongly, people would believe the secret was true. If he stayed silent, his silence would be treated as confirmation. He was trapped between shame and rage, between the urge to defend himself and the fear of losing everything. Nicole could see his face shifting, could see his eyes darkening, could sense the weight of what she had exposed. And no matter what her reasons were, The result was the same. Kial was bleeding emotionally right in front of them. Nicole didn't feel like a winner anymore. She felt like someone who had shattered something without knowing how to put it back together. Maybe it was trust. Maybe it was the identity Kial had fought so hard to build. Maybe it was the illusion of stability Fairmont Crest depended on to survive. Nicole sensed the room turning toward her, the stares changing from curiosity to caution. She knew the whispers would come later. No one would remember that she confronted Vanessa because she felt threatened and wounded. They would only remember that Nicole was the one who spoke the secret aloud. Vanessa didn't need approval from anyone. She needed only outcomes. And now her focus sharpened into something far more dangerous. Nicole had officially become her enemy. No longer a bystander, no longer a tool to manipulate from the sidelines, but a direct problem to eliminate. Nicole felt that shift instantly, like ice sliding down her spine. Vanessa was already calculating what came next, already deciding how cruel her retaliation would be. Kial, shaken and furious, didn't know who to trust anymore. He couldn't fully trust Nicole because she was the one who exposed him. But he couldn't trust Vanessa either because Vanessa had built the entire situation as a game. He was trapped between two women with separate motives, and both motives were grinding him down. What terrified him wasn't only that his secret was out, it was the realization that he had been guided, softened, pulled into conversations he never should have entered. His life had become a stage, and everyone around him seemed to be tugging invisible strings. The fracture between Nicole and Vanessa didn't end with words. It began to seep into Fairmont Crest like poison. People would choose sides. People would exaggerate. People would wait to see who collapsed first. Nicole understood that, and the knowledge suffocated her. She wanted to protect herself from Vanessa's threat. But now she had placed herself at the heart of something much larger. Vanessa's true intention with Kial was still unclear, but it was obvious she wasn't stopping. And Nicole, no matter how strong she tried to look, had just triggered a chain reaction she could no longer control. And just when everyone assumed the confrontation was over, Nicole turned away with the bitter feeling of both winning and losing. When Kial stood frozen as if his entire identity had been stolen from him, Vanessa became calm again. But it wasn't the calm of surrender. It was the calm of someone who had chosen her next move. Her gaze slid past Kial and fixed on Nicole with a chilling clarity, as if she were measuring her like a target. Nicole didn't understand at first. She didn't even have time to prepare. Vanessa reached for her phone in a gesture so ordinary no one would notice. Yet her finger hovered on the screen a fraction too long, as if she were sending something out into the world. And in that instant, Nicole realized the worst possibility wasn't that she had revealed Kial's secret, it was that Vanessa had wanted her to reveal it all along. Because now Vanessa had the perfect excuse to drag both Nicole and Kial into a trap, much bigger than either of them, and the real strike was only just beginning. The Beyond the Gates CBS Spoilers channel specializes in analyzing, theorizing, and discussing plot points in the series from the perspective of a longtime fan. Through this, viewers can gain deeper, more objective, and more interesting insights. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest news about the series.